At the airport, my sister erupted in a tantrum, screaming that she had forgotten her favorite dress and refusing to go without it. Instead of calling her out, my parents immediately comforted her. Then turned to me and said, "Don't worry, your sister will get it for you." I saw her smirk as she settled back into her seat, clearly enjoying the attention. Calmly, I suggested, "Why don't we just buy you a new dress?" Before I finished, everyone lost it at me, insisting I go back and fetch it. I left humiliated, only to see Madison post a photo minutes later with the caption, "Finally, we are about to board, just our precious small family." My mother even replied, "Yes, my girl, this is going to be the best vacation." I stayed silent, and then I acted in a way that left them all stunned. My name is Sarah. I'm 26. This story involves my 23-year-old sister Madison, my parents Robert and Linda, and what was supposed to be our family trip to Hawaii last summer. Madison has always been the family's golden child, the youngest, the pretty one, and the most dramatic. She learned early how to get her way with tears, meltdowns, and manipulation. My parents, especially my mother, always caved in. I was expected to be the responsible older sister who accommodated Madison's needs. I'd just finished a master's in marketing and was working in Chicago. I'd saved for months to afford this Hawaii trip because I needed a break. Madison still lived at home, worked part-time at a boutique, and had our parents paying most of her expenses, including this vacation. Departure day, voiceover, on camera. Departure day started normally. We were to meet at O'Hare at 6 a.m. for an 8 a.m. flight to Honolulu. I arrived on time with one carry-on, having checked in online and packed efficiently. My parents arrived 15 minutes later, excited and ready. Madison showed up 30 minutes late, hauling a huge suitcase and looking flustered. Sorry, she called as she reached us at the counter. I was up all night making sure I had everything. My dad smiled indulgently. "No problem, sweetheart. We've still got time." As we moved through security toward the gate, Madison suddenly froze. Her face changed color. She dropped her bag dramatically and let out a loud gasp that drew attention. "Oh my God," she whispered. Then louder. My mother rushed to her. Alarmed. "My dress?" Madison said, her voice climbing into a high, strained pitch. She was referring to a coral sundress with hand-embroidered flowers, the outfit she'd chosen for the resort's luau dinner. She said she'd left it at home. I rolled my eyes. She had multiple outfits packed, but Madison escalated into a full meltdown, wailing that the trip was ruined without that specific dress, sobbing loudly in the gate area. Family reaction, voiceover. My parents reacted as if this were a real emergency. "Sweetheart, don't cry," my father murmured, patting her awkwardly. My mother looked at me and delivered the look. I knew what that meant. "Don't worry, Madison, your sister will get it for you," my mother said. The words landed like a slap. My father continued. "Matter of fact, Sarah, you can drive back to the house, get Madison's dress, and catch the next flight." I stared at them incredulous. We were at the gate. Boarding would start in 45 minutes. I pointed out the impracticality. Madison glanced up from her theatrics, and for a moment I saw a smirk, before she quickly resumed her upset expression. She begged, "Please, I'll never ask you for anything again." That was especially ironic. She'd asked me to cover her hotel share 2 weeks earlier, after spending her vacation money on a handbag. I tried to be reasonable. "We can buy a new dress in Hawaii. There will be plenty of options at the resort shops." Before I finished, the room erupted. My mother snapped that I was being selfish. My father said sternly this was about family and that I was the only one who could help. Madison's cries intensified and other passengers were staring. I asked, "What about my seat? My time off work?" My father brushed it aside. "There are several flights to Hawaii daily. You'll only be a few hours behind." I explained the round-trip drive plus waiting for standby meant I might not arrive until the next evening. My mother used my full name in that chastising tone that took me back to childhood. I felt small and scolded, but then I noticed Madison had stopped crying long enough to check her reflection and reapply lip gloss. She met my eye, flashed a tiny triumphant smile, and returned to acting. That's when I realized this wasn't about a dress, it was power. Madison was asserting dominance, and my parents were not just enabling her, they were complicit. Surrounded and watched by my family and other travelers, I felt trapped. If I didn't leave immediately, there wouldn't be time for the round trip. Defeated, I whispered, "Fine. I'll get the dress." Madison brightened instantly. "Oh, thank you, Sarah. You're the best sister ever." My mother nodded approvingly. My father added, "Make sure you get the coral shoes by her bedroom door." I gathered my things mechanically, feeling absurd. A grown woman with a job and an apartment running errands for her baby sister like a teenager. The drive back in Chicago traffic took 45 minutes. I thought about how my family had dismissed my time, money, and feelings. I'd paid for my own flight and hotel, and now I'd incur change fees and extra costs because of their demand. I let myself into the house with a spare key. Madison's room was a mess, clothes, makeup, shoes scattered everywhere. Hanging in the walk-in closet was the coral dress. It was pretty. Yes, but worth missing half my vacation. No. I grabbed the dress and the matching shoes. As I left her room, my phone buzzed. Madison had posted a selfie of her and our parents at the gate. Smiling, no trace of earlier tears, captioned, "Finally, we are about to board. Just our precious small family. Hawaii, here we come." The phrase "precious small family" felt like a punch. My mom commented, "Yes, my girl, this is going to be the best vacation," praising Madison as her thoughtful daughter, singular. I screenshotted the post and sat in my car, something inside me shifting. They wanted to humiliate me publicly, to treat me like hired help. Fine. Two could play that game. Instead of rejoining them at the gate, I went to the long-term parking where their car was parked. I called United Airlines from my car and canceled my flight and hotel. The agent accepted my explanation, and since timing was within the cancellation window, I got full refunds for both the flight and the accommodation. Next, I called the resort, the oceanfront property I had researched and booked. With my credit card on file and as the primary guest, I asked them to remove me from the reservation and cancel the activities I'd paid for: the sunset dinner cruise, the helicopter tour, and the snorkeling excursion. The resort refunded the activity fees when they could resell the spots. Removing myself from the booking changed the room category. The oceanfront suite I'd reserved was for 4. With only 3 guests, the resort downgraded the room to a smaller category, with only a partial ocean view. I also made a point about payment. My card was on file for the full amount, but I would only pay my share. The remaining balance would need to be settled by the other 3 guests upon arrival. This meant my parents and Madison would arrive to find a downgraded room and an unexpected balance due. I canceled the convertible rental I'd arranged as a surprise and received a full refund. While finishing the calls, I checked Madison's Facebook again. Friends were gushing, and I left a polite comment: "Have a wonderful time. I'm sure you'll figure everything out." Then I drove home, ran a bath, ordered Thai, opened a bottle of wine, and turned on Netflix. Around 8 p.m. Chicago time, 6 p.m. Hawaii time, my phone started ringing. Dad, Mom, straight to voicemail. I answered Madison's call. "Sarah? Oh my God, what did you do?" she shrieked. I replied calmly. "What do you mean?" She said the hotel claimed I changed the reservation, and that they owed nearly $3,000 and had been moved to a smaller room. I asked if they'd called the resort directly. Madison said yes, and was panicked. I remained matter-of-fact. I'd removed myself from the booking because I wasn't joining them. I would only pay for my share. They were now responsible for the remainder. Her voice went small. "Please, Sarah, can you mail my dress? Overnight? I'll reimburse you." I pointed out the cost, about $200 to overnight the dress, plus the time and money I'd already spent. Madison hesitated and then hung up. For hours my phone blew up with calls and voicemails, including from Aunt Karen pleading with me to put things back the way they were. My father left a final voicemail. If I didn't call the resort and fix it by morning, they'd have to cut the trip short and come home. I poured another glass of wine and asked myself, Is this really what I want? What I wanted was to be treated with respect, to have my time and money valued, to stop being treated like unpaid staff by my family, to see Madison face real consequences for repeatedly manipulative behavior. So yes, this was exactly what I wanted. The next morning I woke to find Madison had posted another Facebook update. When family lets you down, sometimes they only care about appearances. Madison's Facebook post about our precious small family drew predictable support from friends and relatives who didn't know the whole story. I noticed she'd kept the details vague intentionally, because if people heard the truth, they might not be so sympathetic. So I told my side. I wrote carefully. Sometimes you don't realize how you're being treated until you step back and look at the big picture. Yesterday, my family expected me to miss my flight, possibly my whole vacation, to drive home and fetch a dress my sister forgot, rather than buy a new one in Hawaii. When I suggested the obvious alternative, I was called selfish and told I had no choice. I was treated like hired help, not family. After making the round trip and missing my flight, I saw their social media post about their precious small family, so I took care of myself and adjusted my plans. I'm learning that setting boundaries with family matters. I tagged my parents and Madison. Responses poured in fast. Many friends who'd seen our family dynamic for years were supportive. My college roommate Jessica wrote, "Sarah, I've seen this for years, proud of you for standing up for yourself." A coworker called it outrageous. Those messages felt validating, but predictably, some relatives called my post petty or inappropriate. I let the negative comments stand without replying. My mom called within the hour. Her tone was cold. "What you posted is embarrassing." I answered plainly, "Hi mom, how's Hawaii?" She insisted Madison was devastated, and that we'd had to charge hotel fees to dad's card. When I asked if they'd gotten the dress, mom said this wasn't about the dress anymore. It was about me having a breakdown. I pushed back. "No, this is about you deciding my time, money, and feelings don't matter. You asked me to miss my flight so Madison's airport tantrum wouldn't ruin the trip. Then you posted about your precious small family while I was fetching her clothes. You praised Madison and ignored the fact I wasn't in the photo because I'd left to get the dress." There was silence. Then mom accused me of being selfish and vindictive. I reminded her of what she told me at the gate when I suggested buying a new dress in Hawaii, that I was being selfish and needed to be ashamed. She had made it clear my place was to give in to Madison's demands. Eventually mom warned, "If you don't fix the hotel situation, we'll have to cut the trip short and come home." I replied firmly, "That's your choice. I'm not calling the hotel, I'm not paying for Madison's vacation, and I'm not apologizing for standing up for myself." She hung up. That afternoon I booked a long weekend in Napa Valley, a bed and breakfast I'd wanted to visit. The refunds from Hawaii made the trip possible. I also called Emma, a friend who invited me to dinner. Over pasta and wine, I told her everything. She listened and then asked, "How do you feel?" I thought carefully and said, "Free." I felt free, like I didn't have to manage everyone else's emotions anymore. Emma agreed I'd done the right thing. I wasn't being cruel. I'd stopped enabling dysfunction. Over the next few days, word spread. My parents and Madison returned home early, cutting the trip short. Madison posted dramatic updates, blaming selfishness. But people began asking questions. Why wasn't I on the trip? What had I actually done? When the details emerged, sympathy shifted for some. My cousin, who'd earlier criticized me, wrote, "Wait, Sarah missed her flight for a dress. Why not buy one in Hawaii?" Madison deleted most posts. The conversation changed. A week later, Dad called. He opened carefully. "Maybe we overreacted. Maybe we should have handled the airport differently. Maybe we weren't considering your feelings." He admitted we shouldn't have expected you to miss your flight. He said thank you, then added that my cancellation had been harsh. Changing the reservation without warning had put them in a difficult spot. I asked him, "When you saw Madison call it a small family, and Mom praise her on Facebook, how did that look to you?" He paused, then admitted they hadn't thought about it, and that it had hurt. It showed me I wasn't treated as equal. I was the person you called when Madison needed something. He agreed I deserved respect. That conversation began slow repair. It wasn't perfect or instant, but it was a start. Madison, however, remained convinced I'd ruined her trip. A month later she called. "Do you hate me?" I said no. She asked why I'd ruined her vacation. I replied, "I didn't ruin it, I stopped paying for it. You knew you couldn't afford it without me. If you'd thought about that before the tantrum, maybe this wouldn't have happened." She asked what would have happened if I'd refused to get the dress. I said there would have been guilt trips until I gave in, as always. She fell silent. I told her I wasn't going to keep enabling her. If she wanted a relationship, it had to be equal. She protested she never asked me to be her financier, but the expectation had always been unspoken. When things went wrong, I covered them. When recognition was due, I was invisible. She said she didn't know how to fix it. I suggested she start by taking responsibility instead of playing the victim. She didn't answer and hung up. 3 months on, family dynamics were still complicated. My parents tried to be fairer but sometimes slipped into old patterns. I learned to set firmer boundaries and to walk away when I wasn't treated with respect. Madison and I rarely spoke. She still saw me as the villain. That's sad, but it felt freeing. I wasn't responsible for managing her emotions anymore. I took that Napa trip and loved it. Wine tasting, poolside reading, and conversations with people at the B&B. I joined Emma's book club, started a pottery class, and began therapy to understand why I'd accepted this role for so long. Therapy helped me see the pattern. The airport incident was the moment it became impossible to ignore. About 2 months later, Madison started dating Tyler, someone direct who didn't tolerate drama. Early on, she tried the same tactics, and Tyler set boundaries. Instead of losing him, she seemed to respect him for it. Mom noticed Madison was more reasonable, and credited Tyler. That confirmation was validating and frustrating. It showed Madison could change when there were real consequences. It also highlighted how years of enabling had hurt her growth. A telling example: Madison forgot her boots for a Nashville weekend. Tyler said simply, "We can buy new boots in Nashville, or wear what you packed." She bought new boots, and loved them more than the old ones. Mom began to realize our pattern. "We should have just told Madison to buy a new dress in Hawaii," she told me on the phone. "We're used to treating her wants like needs and expecting you to sacrifice." I'm sorry, that apology mattered. It acknowledged a damaging pattern, not just a single incident. My relationship with my parents improved slowly. They still slipped up, but they corrected course more often. When I pointed it out, Madison apologized months later at a family dinner. This time it was different. No excuses, no deflection. "I realize what I asked you to do was unreasonable," she said. "I was being selfish and dramatic. I'm sorry." "Thank you." I accepted the apology and admitted my Facebook post had been hurtful. She acknowledged it was mean and apologized. For the first time, she took full responsibility. We agreed we weren't back to where we were, but we were better. Trust needed time to rebuild. She added something that showed growth. Tyler helped her see that dramatic behavior cost respect. "You might get what you want," she said, "but people won't respect you." That was striking. We're still a work in progress, but it's healthier now. I'm learning to keep boundaries while being supportive. My parents are learning to treat both daughters as equals. Madison is learning to handle disappointment without triggering family-wide crisis. The lesson I want to leave you with is simple. Being family doesn't give anyone the right to mistreat you. Love shouldn't demand you sacrifice your self-respect. It's okay to say no, and sometimes that no is the first step toward a healthier family. The Hawaii incident was painful and disruptive, but it forced all of us to confront patterns that had become unhealthy. Sometimes one clear moment is enough to show how far things have drifted. I never made it to Hawaii that summer, but I've booked a trip for next month, this time with Emma and 2 book club friends. I'm genuinely excited. No family drama, no forgotten dresses, just 4 friends enjoying a beautiful place. And yes, I'm packing 3 sundresses just in case. Looking back, I don't regret what I did. Could I have handled some parts differently? Maybe. But for the first time as an adult, I stood up for myself when my family's expectations became unreasonable. I refused to enable Madison's manipulative behavior and declined to subsidize a vacation where I wasn't respected. People who called my actions petty missed the point. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was protecting myself and setting boundaries long overdue. There's a difference between kindness and being a doormat. Kindness is a choice. Being a doormat comes from fear and old habits. Boundaries aren't punishment, they're an act of self-respect. I learned it's possible to love your family and still refuse to accept unacceptable behavior. I learned to be supportive without enabling, and that sometimes the most helpful thing for someone is to let them face the consequences of their choices. Madison grew stronger and more self-reliant after the incident. My parents became more mindful about treating both daughters fairly. My relationships with them improved because I stopped carrying resentment from constant sacrifice. The dress is still in my closet. I never mailed it to Hawaii, and Madison never asked for it again after the first few days. As it turned out, she could easily find lovely dresses in Waikiki after all. This whole episode changed the family dynamic. It didn't fix everything overnight, but it started a process of change. More balance, clearer boundaries, and healthier expectations. If there's one takeaway I want to leave you with, being family doesn't give anyone the right to mistreat you. Love shouldn't demand you sacrifice your dignity. It's okay to say no. Sometimes that no is the first step toward real healing.